Hello everybody. I hope you can hear me now, and a very warm welcome to this live stream once again with me, 320 Sim Pilots. Thank you very much for coming along and joining us today. Slightly nervous about this one, as you saw, slightly mystery livery, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But thank you for coming along. As always, I am a real-world Airbus pilot, but all of this is just for our use in Flight Simulator at home. But hopefully, it can give some extra context on what you do with your home simulations. Thank you all for taking the time to come along. Fluky86 started off the chat, and thank you. Yes, we reached 1,000 subscribers, which is brilliant. Thank you all for joining in and being a part of that. It's just amazing. Yeah, good to see you, Dougal. Thanks for coming along, and Swappy S, Richard V, Isa, Wafik off to do their own stream. So thank you for coming along just to say hello, Isa. Hopefully, I can do the same to your stream a bit later on. I hope you're all doing very well. Philos as well. Avio Man, thanks. Good to see you, Avio Man. Thanks for coming along. Pavel as well. Pavel, hello. Joe, a name I haven't seen before. Thanks for coming along, Joe. Captain Florida, good to see you again. Carter, thanks for coming. Carter is the designer of the Neo mod, which we've used in several other videos in the past and will be using in the future, but not today for a few reasons I will discuss very shortly. I'm very well, Swappy. Thanks for coming along. SB, thank you for coming. And yeah, let's get ready. Richard, thank you very much. You've been here since right at the start, back when we had certainly less than 100 when we started. So it's been quite a journey, and I can't believe, we're sitting here with over 1,000. It's quite amazing. Michael Sakuda, thanks for coming. Good evening, and Michael B. So here we are. We recently flew a Neo A321 into Funchal, Madeira. We did the RNP sort of circling approach round onto 05 on a rather windy day. And now we're sitting here in our 321, looking around. As you can see, I do have a slight issue with the modelling in my X-plane, where the apron sits about, 5 degrees nose down. So it'll be interesting to see how Better Pushback manages. It doesn't seem to manage on the best of days, let alone when the situation is like this. But yeah, we shall see how it does. Hopefully the Cloud Nightbot, I think it's called Nightbot actually, is working for you guys. If you type in ! commands, hopefully it'll show you the commands, including the Discord invite. It didn't work last time. Maybe it's going to work this time. We shall see. So thank you for your patience. If there is anything you're waiting to find out about or get information on, I'll try and just answer it if the Nightbot doesn't work. I am Dimitri. Thanks for coming along. Good to see you. And thank you. Yeah, 1,000. I can't believe it. Yeah, really pleased. Thorsten Salter, thanks for coming. Good to see you here. So, what is the mystery livery, I suppose? Well, a few weeks ago, we were going up in subscribers, and the numbers were sort of changing, and still increasing. And then a few people mentioned it might be nice to see a livery, and I sort of thought, yeah, it would be nice to have a livery of some variety that we could use on this channel and that our members could use. And I say member, I mean any of you, anyone who wants to come along and join in. So, and I started work on it a little bit with much help from my, I'll call them my graphics designer, a very good friend who's been working hard producing all the thumbnails and so on, and helping me out with any photoshopping, because I have no Photoshop or Procreate or any of those sorts of abilities at all. But I've been very lucky that someone's been helping me do that, and we started working on one and fiddling around. So it's very much been running in the background a little bit, and like I say, I am a little bit nervous for this one, because it's see how you guys react. But essentially, I'll give you a little hint. Let's jump to an engine view. It's the wing view. As you can probably start to get the idea, and I'm sure a lot of you guessed anyway, I've been thinking about bringing out a livery for our channel. So there's the first little clue. There's the next clue. Now, I'm sure many of you will have opinions on it. I don't even know how well received my channel theme of I've often gone with this sort of neon/teal, blue and pink colour scheme, which has become a bit of a theme on the channel. It's just a scheme I've always sort of thought looked quite nice together, and we decided to put it together into a livery. So let's go and have a look at the outside. So here we are. Now cover your eyes. I'm sure that is not what some of you were hoping or expecting to see, so I do apologise if that is the case. But let me talk you around it a little bit, and maybe it'll grow on you, like all these things. It's quite striking, which was part of the plan all along. Not entirely sure about the name yet, but that's where we've sat for now, just to get a livery produced. So what I'll do is let's go view external, and let me just indulge myself for a little bit. I promise we won't spend too long walking around livery. As I said, this is very much a starter project, so it's been something that since we've been fiddling with the Neo mods and so on, we've been working on. There we go, exactly the reactions I was expecting. So yeah, so there's a few things about it. I wanted to get this curve at the nose, which has been that was really hard to get right. So it's been quite a project, and I've seen on other liveries that people do find that one quite difficult, but we sort of managed to get that represented, I think. We've gone with the blue and the pink, which is obviously the channel theme as much as it has been. So yeah, we wanted to stick with that. Tried a few different ideas. There's been different colours and so on different stages, but that's where we ended up. And you certainly can't miss it. So that definitely helps. We've got the IE engines fitted today, which is sort of how I standard fly, but we've also done the CFM, which I will show you. But yeah, we broke it up. We've gone with the grey and the grey line along the windows. As I've said in many videos, I do like having the grey line running along the windows. And let's close up that door. Hopefully, I thought that was closed. That'll be one right. Close that up. And the line sort of runs along and then sort of joins into that line at the top there. So we thought that was quite nice, give it a bit of speed. Obviously had to have the goggles, why wouldn't you? That is the standard modern day Airbus. They seem to all have that, the fancier ones. And yeah, that was pretty much the design cue was really, we just wanted to have that retro sort of feel with the grey and the line, whilst also keeping true to the channel, I suppose, and its colours. The winglets, as you've probably noticed, pink on the outside, blue on the inside, and we've also modelled not modelled, how dare I? We've painted the sharklets as well. Let me show you that. Plugins. While I'm here, I can show you the sharklets, and let's go for CFM, just to show you. So there you go, CFM, very similar idea, as you can see. Sharklets are the reverse, so we've got blue on the outside, pink on the inside. I just thought it seemed to work better with the colours, and the fact they were sitting higher, they seemed to sit in the top half of the aeroplane more than the bottom half. So that's what we got there. Carla Joel was saying, is it the party bus? Exactly, yeah. Michael says, love it. I'm glad, Michael. Michael B, yep, I would definitely need sunglasses. I thought, we flew that Virgin Sun livery, and I thought if I can get away, and Virgin Sun got away with a bright yellow livery, why can't we get away with this? So yeah, we really went for it. Michael Sakula has spotted something. Yep, I think it should be on both. We had a bit of fun with the spinners. So both the low speed and the high speed spinners are themed accordingly for the channel. So there's no missing this aeroplane, even if you're about to be sucked in by the engine. You will certainly get the idea of which livery you're standing near, if you hadn't noticed already. Then moving down the back, obviously we had to brand the aeroplane. It's got to say 321-200. Why wouldn't it? A lot of airlines do that, and I quite like it, so I thought we'd have that. GSIMX. You'll see when we're in the air, it seems to fit nicely there. We just made up the registration. It's not actually an aeroplane anywhere in the world. Let me get rid of this rear truck. Let's get rid of a few of these things, just so we can see it a bit better. Oh no, don't add. Get rid of. Already got the fuel on board. And I'll close up some more doors, just so you can get a better idea. That'd be 4 right. Okay, yeah, there we go. So it's a bit frustrating because the lines are all supposed to be obviously completely flat, but this apron's completely at an angle. So yeah, so that fits in between those two lines. We've got a door. The grey line runs to the back, which I just like. I like the line like that on the windows. I think it always looks smart. We've kept this line here. That should stay horizontal, so a little bit of trim on the blue. That's sort of inspired by the Singapore Airlines livery. They do that, which I think is a really neat idea, really smart. Just gives it a bit of extra edge when you see it when it's level. I suppose not quite like now. Yeah, as I said, very much this is our first try. There's things that will change, so then there'll be a few variations on it, obviously, but this is just our starting point. So I thought you guys might like to see it just for the fun of it. But yeah, and there's a couple more details I'll show you once we are up in the air. But for now, yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. So do let me know what you think, even if you absolutely hate it. I wasn't expecting it to be slightly divisive or maybe even appalling to some people. So yeah, so thanks very much. Right, let's have a quick look. Dougal says definitely individual. Yeah, it absolutely is. That is that was the purpose of it. And Dimitri, is there a missing logo, or is this how it is? Yeah, so the Manta, I suppose I should probably explain the Manta. So we were trying to come up with a way to fit our logo onto it, which we've put onto the engines here. But it's a little bit tricky to get this onto the tail because as you know, on my channel, it usually runs with a vertical line down the middle, and it's just half, and then we have this full width version for other uses. But as an icon, it's just this half. But the tail, unfortunately, doesn't read that way, so it was always going to be an issue, and it would come up so small in the middle. So we went with this. Marine life and diving is a passion of mine, so I couldn't resist the opportunity to get a manta onto the tail. So we're going to use the manta call sign for today. Again, this isn't a virtual airline, it's not set in stone, and I don't even know if VATSIM will allow it, so we'll find out. But that's the idea there. It's just something I like, and being able to put it onto the airplane just for the fun of it seemed like an opportunity I couldn't miss, because like I say, the channel logo so far is just this one here, which we can't find a way to successfully put onto the tail, and I quite liked it like that, a little bit abstract. Obviously, I'm aware that I think Frontier in America do their animals on the tail, but yeah. So there we are. Right, let's put it back to how it was and how we're going to do this flight today. We're going to be in the IAE, we're going to be wingtip vents, and there we go. Also, the SATCOM antennas aren't done yet, they're the wrong colour. Because it's been, as any of you who've actually done repainting will know, it's been a complete nightmare trying to get any of this to work, any of the lines in the right place or to join up. But yeah, there we go. I think it looks quite nice. I quite like the one of my favourite ones is the engine view, having the got the logo on the inside, so any passengers filming out the window would certainly get spotted like that. And the blue winglet. But there we go. So Joe Stone, it's not a bat, it's a manta ray. Yeah, there you go. Sorry guys, I should have made that clear. Matteo, yeah, it's a manta ray. So yeah, Mr. Espresso, the CSL kit should be updated. Yeah, there you go. That would be quite something. Imagine if we had a few of these going around. Excellent. DG27, thanks for coming along. Yep, you absolutely need your sunglasses. I should have put that on the title for this one. Definitely should have warned some people. Excellent. And yeah, Michael Scott, that is a good point in terms of naming the airline. SimPilot is perhaps not the most suitable for for the passengers. That is an excellent point. We have to have a think about that. Thanks, DG. Yeah, it's been through a few iterations, a few variances, but you'll find that slowly it's not quite as dramatic as you might expect. But yeah, see, I know I had a few complaints about my original overlay at the top of the screen, so I've made sure that that is now the last of your concerns when watching. You'll have to deal with the whole livery. So here we go. Great. Right, let's crack on then with the flight. So we're going to be leaving Madeira, and obviously we dealt last time with the emergency turn procedures, which you might face if you're leaving somewhere with terrain around, which would be if you have an engine failure on departure, what would you do? And you have to have a plan. Interestingly, if you look through the notes, Madeira actually insists that operators inform them what the engine failure procedures are. So let's bring up the Avitab. It might not be written on this chart, but it was written in the AOI that they want. It is here. Each operator must prepare its own engine failure procedures, and I'm pretty sure they have to inform them as well before that. So it's surprisingly simple here because the terrain's so close. The SIDs already take you on an immediate turn after takeoff. Start the right turn as soon as practicable to avoid high ground on the left side, obviously. So actually, we don't need to do anything because we're going to turn right anyway. So as long as we climb on this SID up to the MSA, I don't see any reason it won't work for us, even if we have an engine failure. Again, that's not real advice. If you're going to go and fly to Funchal, do not do what I just said. But yeah, for us today, that's what we'll do. So actually, it's quite nice, quite straightforward. It's an interesting point, turn as soon as practicable. Airlines will have their own limits. Some airlines won't let you turn below 500 feet on a normal takeoff, a two-engine takeoff. Others will have different limits, maybe 300 feet, that sort of thing. So today we're going to I think we'll wait to 300 feet and then turn right. It says after takeoff, start the right turn as soon as practical. So really we need to be turning by the time we're passing the other end of the runway just to get away from the ground. So yeah, we'll get airborne and get ourselves turning. It will take no time to reach 300 plus feet on two engines. We're also going to use toga takeoff because there is a warning, and it is a little bit breezy today. There is a warning that you need to set off with maximum thrust is recommended if there's any sort of risk of wind shear. So it's 23 knots coming off those hills over there, which could easily cause some sort of disturbances as we head along down the runway and once we get airborne. So there's no point not having that thrust available to us when we go. So that's what we're going to do. We'll get ourselves the maximum thrust, which we haven't used before in the stream, I don't think. So I thought that'd be something slightly different. And then we're going to head north, got a few things to chat about. This came up just before we set off, actually, just before in the Discord. So we'll talk about the cargo heating and so on, and maybe a couple of extra things on the livery. So for now, let's get ourselves loaded up into the MCDU. Carter Joel, I'm not using a mod at all, actually. This is the standard IEE. So is that a different sound pack? Minky Kim, hey, thank you for coming along. And Geordie, thanks for coming along. Fly24, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you think it looks smart. Yeah, I do apologise for anyone if they find it far too bright, but hopefully it brightens up somebody's day a little bit. And it will become available on the Discord soon if anybody would like to use it. Just a few finishing touches, and we need to get some antennas and so on sorted. Okay, so if anyone's joining along, we're going to start this from scratch. So this is how the MCDU loads up on the Airbus. If you turn on the airplane from cold and dark, you get this page. We're going to check the cycle, which I recently updated, so 2007 is absolutely fine, and it got the right engine, IEE, and these performance figures. We don't fiddle with these. There is a way to do it through certain codes, but really it's not for us to fiddle with. It should be set up by engineering. What that's talking about is different parameters as the engines wear out and age differently. You have to fiddle, or you don't, the engineers will fiddle with these numbers to make sure that all the performances are roughly equal. That's my understanding of that bit, but yeah, we don't really fiddle with that. Usually your flight plan will tell you what it should be if you're interested. Yeah, so let's go to that's in it. So we're going to go from Lima Papa Mike Alpha, and yeah, if anybody is flying along, I've seen a few. I know a few of us have joined in over there, so thank you guys for joining in. And again, maybe if you type in ! route, the bot will work for you, but there's no guarantees at the moment. It's been a bit of an issue lately, so we shall see. So Lima Papa Mike Alpha, and we're going to route obviously to Lisbon. Lima Papa Tango. That goes in there. Flight number, I'm just going to use IMX. Now again, I have no idea if this is allowed. We're going to be IMX1, which we're going to use as Manta1 will be our call sign. Cost and X today is simply 5, nice and low, maybe a reasonable climb speed. Climbing up to flight level 340. And I'll let the temperature just fill in automatically. That's the ISA temperature. If it's different, then you'd obviously type that in there depending on what you're expecting. Winds can load in. And alternate is going to be, I keep forgetting the registration of the alternate. I say registration, the ICAO code. It is SVQ, which is going to be Lima Echo, is in Spain. Lima Echo, Zulu Lima. And that can go in there. So that's the init flight plan then. Expecting to depart from 05. Sorry if you can hear a cat meowing in the background. She's decided to come and join us. And we're expecting to depart via Dagen. So we'll put that in. Temporary flight plan and insert. Bring that up. Zoom in. And that is looking pretty good. So there you go. So the box is trying to turn at 600 feet. But, I mean, we'll reach 600 feet probably even before the end of the runway, maybe shortly after, especially with that headwind. But we may get our right turn going sooner. We don't want to be heading into those hills. Because Dagen's listed as an... Dagen's an overflight point. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. After Dagen, we're going direct to the point Nata, November, Alpha, Romeo, Tango, Alpha. And after that, we're going direct to Unpot. When you just do directs, it's actually a bit easier because we don't have to fiddle around with airways. Unput, because there's obviously not so many airways. Most of these routes down to these islands, typically you'd go oceanic, I think, or maybe you'd head down through France and Spain and head out like this, just with these sort of direct routings. Nata and then Unpot, and then we'll insert. Now I'll just set up an arrival. I'm expecting probably 03, and we're going to arrive via obviously Unpot, and the island of arrival for that. Quite simple. We'll look at it on the way, but expecting the 8 Alpha. So there you go. If anyone's joining along, do ask if you're missing anything, and I can let you know. Carter Joel was saying that FT Sim has a sound pack for the IE. Oh, I'll have to have a look because I quite like the Toliss sounds, but I do. The first mod I used was for the Neo, and it was really good. So I could definitely see myself using that again. So we'll have a look and see how it goes. Matteo, no problem. You can't join in. Enjoy your work. I hope it's not too much work going on at the moment. Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry for that. I really don't know what I've done wrong with the stream bot. It used to work, and we had no trouble with it. Let me try just turning it off and on again, which is the standard answer. Stick all the commands in. I'm going to turn it on now. Cool. Let me just try myself. No. Okay. No problem. Okay, that's not working. Fine. Sorry, guys. So there's the route if anybody is gonna come along. So that is DIF secondary. Well, as I said, we're just going to carry on with what we're doing. The last thing we want to do is start fiddling around and heading straight into the hills. So we're just going to keep that flight plan as it is, so the secondary can be the same. This RATNAV. Let's see. I think this was an RNAV departure today. Going to Zaval. Yeah, it's not based on any VOR or anything like that. They're just RNAV departures, so there's no real point tuning these things in unless we had a reason to go and head somewhere. We're also going to be visual, so we can keep ourselves out to sea that way in case we lose GPS and things like that. Init B. I have loaded it already into the Toliss, so our zero fuel weight is going to be 67.3. We got quite a good weight today at 26.5. And unusually today, I'll probably regret this, but what I've gone for is looking at the fuel planning. We've got 8.2 required fuel with 200 taxi fuel, which seems reasonable. 15 minutes contingency, which is pretty good. Alternate is 2 tons, so it's a good fuel alternate, 37 minutes away. It's a bit too far away, but that means we've got extra fuel on board in case we want to use it to stay in Lisbon. And I'll talk about how we can do that as we go. So plus our 800 kilos, I couldn't see any reason for extra. So we're going with 8.2 today, which is already on. That goes in there. And that gives us our 75.3 takeoff weight, 71 tons landing. All fine, all below the limits. As you can see, 93.5. We can go really heavy on these ones. Right, performance then. So I'm going to select use toga thrusts. We go flaps 1. You're certainly using toga on flaps 2 or 3. It's not so enjoyable because you'll get quite fast and you'll find that you'll be struggling with the speed to keep it back initially. You're unlikely to have an overspeed, but if you're taking off in turbulent conditions, flap 2 or 3, and you're a toga thrust because of wind shear or any other reason, then you'll find that it could be quite difficult to keep the speed under control. So flap 1 gives us more room, so we're going to use that. So finally, perf 05, no shift. I wanted to use this today, but it doesn't look like they use the intersection. But I might be talking nonsense there, but I didn't have the shift number, the meters number. But as we know, it doesn't. The GPS will update anyway when we go. Flaps 1 for takeoff. No flex, so we're going toga, so I'm just going to leave that blank. And now I've got to remind myself, I'm going to put the thrust levers all the way forwards. It's that easy, all the way forwards. Speeds, V1 153, VR 153, and V2 158. 225 clean, no problem with that. And climb speeds 250 knots is fine. We could pre-select something else if we wanted. So if you didn't want the plane to lower the nose, something you could just pre-select it there. But 250 knots will work just fine for us today. So there we go. And I'll leave that on the performance page, as this side will be part of flying. Get rid of that. Right, let's start closing things up. So sometime around now, you'd finish up the paperwork probably. So I shouldn't have got rid of that, should I? Let's close these last doors. So you'd have a member of the ground crew who is responsible for getting the paperwork and the last bits that are signed. Things like the tech log, so the captain every flight will sign a piece of paper saying that they're accepting the airplane and they've seen the different defects and so on. You wouldn't arm the slides immediately. The slides would get armed by the cabin crew when it's definitely safe outside. So usually as you start your pushback, they can arm the slides. It's just to make sure that nobody opens a door, a slide goes out the door, and then it will be sitting on top of a staircase, set of stairs or something. So paperwork would be done, and then once that's gone, we can get ready. You'd have a receipt for the fuel of some variety to make sure that you agree, and you check how much fuel was uplifted to make sure it matches and how much fuel you now have on board. So we do quite a few checks of the fuel. You'll probably remember there was an incident, I think it was the Gimli glider, where the numbers were muddled around and it led to the plane having not the right amount of fuel on board. There's a few procedures that were used to check that the fuel uplifted is the amount of fuel you expected. Brent Norman, thanks for coming along. Thanks for subscribing. And I'm glad you're enjoying the Airbus. Yeah, absolutely. They're great fun to fly. Window seat. What program are you using for your charts? and what do you use for creating routes? So I use SimBrief for creating the routes, and the program for the charts is Navigraph. So I have a subscription to Navigraph. There are free ways to get charts. If you look on YouTube, there's legally there's free ways that most nations will publish their own charts, but I don't know how to get them in here, and they're not all the same formats, so they can be slightly harder to interpret. But so with a little bit more work, you can definitely get them. But at the moment, I'm paying for a subscription for Navigraph. Roger Moore says, could you explain what reference you use on the PFD for rate of climb on departure? Thanks. So on departure, we're going to use SRS, which will be a vertical mode, which will come up here. And it'll be SRS speed reference system. And that will fly the airplane at V2 or V2 plus 10 if you're on both engines. So today, hopefully, V2 plus 10. And that means that it will just have the engine set to takeoff thrust, or today that will be TOGA, so maximum thrust, and the speed would just be kept at that speed by adjusting the pitch accordingly. So that's how we're going to reference it. So mainly on speed initially. If you lost all of that, you'd just need to pitch roughly between 15 and 20 degrees, depending on your flap setting and so on, in order to maintain the speed around V2 or V2 plus 10 if you're on both engines. So that's typically what we do for a normal takeoff. Slightly different to a Boeing. Right, so that is the box loaded up, and let's see where we're sitting here. Let's get the APU going. Got econ flow, but I think we've got enough passengers. Econ flow just reduces the flow into the cabin slightly, so it's slightly more efficient. Fuel's on board, that can go on. Get that started up, and otherwise I think we're pretty much set and ready to go. Already set the TCAS to its norm. That should be there. Good. Like I say, I'm a bit nervous about the Better Pushback. Let's get rid of all the ground equipment. Idle, so we can actually drive out of here, and let's get Better Pushback. I messed this up last time.
Ground to cockpit.
Hopefully they just connect now.
Driving up.
Excellent. Here we go. Still looks like a windy day. We've got that sort of wave effect. It doesn't look so good here, but once you're up in the air, it looks a lot nicer. And it looks like there's an aircraft carrier. I've only just seen that. There you go. Yeah, there is one, and it's moving. I didn't know that was there. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, there you go. I guess I know in X-Plane you can go and do some flights into carriers, can't you? So maybe that's all that's there for. So here we go now in our livery, getting ready to go. And what I need to do is contact, I think we have ATC today. LPPC Center 12555. Let's give it a go. I should do it from this side. I think it looks a bit better in the sun. Right, let's go.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
12555. There we are. Okay. So do tell me if I'm doing something wrong here. Thanks, Carter. Yeah, there you go. This carrier's just sort of floating around. I've never seen one before, but I've never been somewhere with quite that view. So let me just check. I don't know what you guys use to check who's online, but I've just been using this app, freeware app, which is pretty good. It looks like there is somebody above us. So should I contact them? There's only one controller, it seems, above us. Do I contact them now and assume that they're going to control front chow? Or are they running above us? Interesting. Let's give it a go. Why not? I think we can do that. Control Mantle 1 on stand 12 in Madeira Funchal, QNH 1016. Request clearance for Lisbon. Mantle 1 on the ground at Lisbon. Am I right to contact you for clearance?
Are you sure you're at Lisbon or are you at Madeira?
I'm in Madeira, Lima Papa Mike Alpha. I'm requesting clearance to Lima Papa Papa Tango.
Madeira 1, cleared to Lisboa, climb at level 60 via Dagon 3 November, squawk 3532. Information Sierra QNH 1016.
Thank you. Cleared to Lisbon via Dagon 3 November, climb flight level 60, squawk 3532, QNH 1016, Manta 1.
Manta 1, read correct, report ready.
Wilco, Manta 1. Okay, excellent. That was I should have named the airport correctly. That's my mistake. I totally forgot to do it. But there we go. We're obviously in Madeira. I'll check on the way. Right, let's get our squawk in. 3532, 3532. Let's get that to XPDR. Dagen 3 November. Check that's in here. So IMX1, and we're going Dagen 3 November. And he said flight level 60, 60. We still leave it on QNH until we're up in the air and on the way. But as soon as we're on the way, we need to remember to set it to standards. One thing worth checking is that this is set right. Yeah, so it'll flash at us as a warning as we get through 5,000 feet to remind us. A great feature on the Airbus that I don't think a lot of other airliners have, but yeah, really useful. Just sort of make sure you can't forget that. Right, let's load up our checklists. And we'll go for the, not before that, before start. Here we go. Right, so we called the pushback tag, checked the weather, and talked about what we're going to do if we have any problems. KTC, SID, initial altitude transponder. And here we go then. Beacon, check the thrust levers are definitely at idle. Check those windows are all closed up. And let's contact ATC and get the pushback underway. And we were on stand 12. Manta 1, request push from stand 12.
Manta 1, push and start approved, runway 05.
Push shall approved, runway 05, Manta 1. Excellent. So that is push shall approved. Let's see if I can get this right.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
So 05, so we're going to head that way, isn't it? So let's do that.
Still connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
Okay, let's get rid of that. Here we go. Fingers crossed this works. Brakes released. Oh, don't go forwards.
Starting pushback. You may start the engines.
Oof, that was heart stopping. There we go. Right. Now I did see a note saying that they don't like us to start our engines until we are out of the apron sort of area. But given that we're pretty much clear all around, I'm going to hope that that doesn't apply onto this stand. So let's get that APU bleed on. We're obviously going to need that. Set this to ignition. Now we can see we've got pressure. So we'll start engine 2. We're going to need both engines given the angle of this taxiway and the runway. And start the timer. Here it comes. Let's get a view of that. Hopefully you'll be able to see. Oops, excuse me. It should stay with those colours even at high speed. Now I know I got in trouble before because I used a Neo aircraft with the wingtip fences without the sharklets, so I know it's not always appreciated. So this little detail may get adjusted if it's too unpopular. There you go. Captain Geo, thanks for coming along. Good to see you here. Thanks for joining us. And it looks like we've got Streamlabs working. So there we go. Glenn Chambers, thanks for coming along. No, I haven't been using Sim Toolkit Pro, so hopefully someone else can help you there. Theolodge, thanks for coming. Theolog, sorry if I got that wrong. But yeah, thanks for joining us. I'm Dimitri. Yeah, I've had trouble with this. It came up in Gibraltar where my sceneries are not quite as level as they should be. This is the default, entirely default X-plane. And unfortunately I tried to modify it in Gibraltar, but because I don't have extra scenery, it's the default. I couldn't find the way to do it. But yeah, if we ever come to Madeira again, that will need to be sorted because it made an interesting way of landing as well.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Okay, let's get that brake set to park. They can disconnect.
Disconnecting tow.
Let's
Stand by.
start engine 1. Got pressure, on it goes. Get that timer running. Yeah, I've never seen an angle like that. It would probably be quite bad as well, especially you would struggle to align. You'd line the ADIRs. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. I've never encountered it as an issue. I suppose they must be able to account for some sort of tilt on the ramp and so on. But yeah, I don't know I don't know whether that would be too much of an issue for them to be sitting at this sort of angle when you initially align them. Mo, thanks for coming along, Mo. Good to see you. Captain Geo, please focus on your driving. I hope you're not not getting distracted by our stream. Right.
Snow is disconnected and bypass
There they
has
go.
been removed. And signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
There's that clunk. Engine available. Looking good. Stop that. Back to norm. Don't need the APU anymore. And trim. It's 27.5. So I'll scoot over here. 27.5 as ever. Maybe a little bit that way this time. It's a relatively rough adjustment that you try your best to get it at the percentage, but as you can see, there's no fine-tuned numbers. I think it is possible on the flight control page to see, yeah, you've got this degree, but you need to have it not as a percentage. You need a up or down number, but a lot of airlines won't work with the number because obviously you could set it wrong, whereas the percentage just travels as a percentage. So you couldn't have one up or one down. You know, you can have 27.5. There's only one option. So there we go. Right, hopefully he waved and off he goes. I should have seen that, but there we are. Get rid of that. And let's get that after such checklist. Sorry guys, that should have this organised a bit better. So pushback's done. We've started the engines. AP master trim's done. Oh, yeah. So the reason these are done as sort of two separate flows. So the pilot flying typically will finish up with the engine start and fiddle with the overhead panel. Pilot monitoring will go down here and sort out the flaps, hydraulics, that sort of thing. But that should be pretty much it. They will do those three and obviously reset that. Which is all done. Pushback crew's gone. Now we're going to run with our flight control check. So let's get ourselves underway. Manta 1, request taxi. Should have had that set to constraint really. Probably both have it to constraint at this point. That's the most useful thing. Taxi via Alpha Charlie to holding point 05, Manta 1, thank you. Okay, Alpha Charlie, holding point Charlie. And there's the breakaway, I see, there's the breakaway. Right, so let's get the runway turn off, taxi lights on, and we're going to release those brakes, check it's all clear on the left and on the right, and oh dear, it's doing that because we're rolling, I think because we're rolling in one direction or another. And we're going steeply uphill here. So yeah, as I said before, any sort of slope, and airports will have it noted. Maybe your airline will have warnings when you go somewhere to remind you that you're going to need to use both engines to taxi around, like in this example. Okay, right, let's do the flight control check. So there's full left, full right, neutral, full down, full up, neutral, and if I remember which button I've assigned it to, rudder, full right, full left, and neutral. FO would do their sides. Excellent. We're getting over the hill now, which is good. We've got our speeds in. Toga takeoff, must remind myself. Toga. Got to climb that blue 152, and we're stopping at flight level 60 eventually, which we'll set once we get in the air. Won't take long to do that. We'll need to get that in pretty quickly. Otherwise, I think we are pretty much good to go. So, weather radar can go on. Let's just slow it down before I embarrass myself. That can go to TARA. Weather radar's on. Auto brake to max. Takeoff config. Get rid of flight controls. And ding the cabin. Here we go, Charlie. And we're going to do a backtrack. Always fun. So. Clear of takeoff runway 05, Manta 1 will be backtracking. Okay, so we are already clear for takeoff. I'm going to remind myself with a little note in there. Leave it on the performance page. We're going to line up, so let's check it's all clear on approach. Looks clear, get those lights on. And bleeds can stay on. There we go. So it's a standard thing that in an airport they expect you to backtrack. They probably wouldn't ask, but if you were needing to use the full runway and they expect you to use an intersection, you'd definitely tell them before you start taxiing, because it could be somebody behind you doesn't need to and you're going to use up all that time. Maybe they could land an aircraft now instead of letting me take off. It seems quite restrictive here because of that one entry point into the runway, so I don't know if they could use that much. But some airports will, for example, say I wanted to use full length, well, they might let someone behind go if there wasn't time for me to take off because of someone on approach, something like that. CMod, thanks for coming along. I have done single engine taxi in previous videos. It wasn't going to work here because of the taxiway slopes, so I'll try and do it again in one of my next streams. So here we go. I think this is quite an easy backtrack because you can either do a 180 turn on the runway, which I haven't done in any of my videos actually, which is quite a specific technique. Oh, let's do the 180 turn. Actually, no, we're going to use this because we're going downhill. So let's use the turning bay, which is the simplest way to do it. But I will show you in a video soon how to do it within the runway width. It's amazing how maneuverable the airplane is. And around we go. We're still rolling away towards the sea. Yeah, I would hope there's no airports that have this sort of taxiway gradient. Good, so that's all done. And it's going to be interesting. We'll do a stop takeoff because we're going to need to. In fact, I'm going to need to get thrust on to get up this hill. Come on, you can do it. Go on, round we go. Creaking the way.
On runway 0.
And we were already clear for takeoff. So I'll do a stop takeoff just to stop me rolling backwards. So, right, off we go. Start the timer. Everything's set. Take off. We're going for toga takeoff. Getting out right turn in. And there it is, man. Toga. SRS. Auto thrust is armed. Thrust is set. Looking good at toga. Feeding that wind from the left. Reaching 100 knots. Side 6 to neutral. Bouncing around. It's going to be interesting as we get airborne with this bank angle already on. And V1 and rotate. Oh, no problem. Didn't need half the runway. Positive climb, gear up. And it wants us to turn as soon as we can. We said we're going to do it 300 feet. There's 300. Let's get that turn going. It's in nav mode. So you wouldn't tend to ignore the flight directors in the Airbus, but there's something about the coding here. And away we go, getting away from that terrain on our left. Excellent. 2 clicks back this time. Don't get that wrong. Otherwise you'll end up without any thrust. Thrust, climb, auto thrust. And it's quite a big change in thrust, so as you can see the speed washed off quite quickly there because you're quite a significant change. And we're heading away. Turning into a tailwind, so actually you start to lose energy as well, which is why as we turned right we lost speed surprisingly quickly, and you have to keep the nose coming down because if you turn and the wind as you turn starts to come behind you, that's what you can expect. Oh, I think I missed that. Let's do that. Thank you, climb flight level 300, Manta 1. Flight level 300. In it goes. That solves one of our issues. Let's set standard for that. And there it is. Out blue, 300. Landing gear is up, so next step, bring in those flaps. Through airspeed, flaps can go to 0. And now we're accelerating away to 250, and off we go. Out over the sea. Let's get a little flyby. Brilliant. Oh dear. I think I need to adjust the volume of air traffic for myself. I'm struggling. Maybe I can do it on here. I don't know if that helps. I don't know if any of you know if that helps. Yeah, adjusting those volumes. But here we go. Okay, so we're at climb thrust, so that can go off. Flaps are at 0, so we can disarm those and get rid of the nose gear lights. They're all tucked away in the wheel well. And up we go. Hi, Philip. Thanks for joining us. And away we go. Good question from Carter. As you said to use max performance takeoff, would you also mean no PAX takeoff to get more performance of the engine? Yeah, if you were struggling, then that could be a reason to do it. The performance gain, depending on what flex you were going to use, of Toga will be significant, really quite a big change. The performance gain of PAX is a bit more limited, so you could, it wouldn't be unreasonable to use a Toga takeoff and also leave the PAX on. But you're right. If you really needed the performance and you really wanted it, if you were concerned, then you would do a PAX off takeoff. Straight and pot. Thanks, mate. So 1. So yeah, absolutely. And pots, which is the start of our arrival into Lisbon. So there we go. So we might get control all the way. There's that tailwind. So I think we got a tailwind the whole way. I had a look at the weather, which looked pretty good in Portugal. So that's another reason we could go with our standard fuel. Someone's got their call sign. I do that all the time.
With the flight level 370, apologies for the delay, I was away getting my dinner there.
Thomas Mortimer says, are the logo lights on the A320 always connected to the nav lights as they are the same switch? Thought nav lights always on, but logo just at airports. So Thomas, great question. Thomas has always got these questions that are amazingly detailed. So the logo lights, let's just do our, oh, what happened there? What a wind change, you'd really feel that. Anyway, we'll just do our flight level 100 checks. So get rid of those landing lights. The nose is low. Well, let's just see that turbulence settles before we do the seat belts. Bring up the airports, go into here, clear out the rad nav while we weren't using it, copy the secondary, and that should be pretty much it. Yeah, so it's nav and logo up here. The logo lights are talking about the lights in the tail, which these are the lights, and they'll turn off. I think it's above a certain altitude, so they're on and lower down, and I think the Toliss simulates this. I think it does it accurately. But it's, as pilots on the Airbus, it's just not something you ever think about, really. The nav lights we check every walk around because they're very important. You don't need them in the daytime, but you... Climb flight level 340, Manta 1. There we go, 340, flight level 340. But yeah, for us, we just want to make sure they're working. You've got 2 systems, so if you do a walk around and one of the bulbs is broken on the nav light, so that's the tail light and the wing green and red lights, then you'd need to get that sorted. You could either swap system, but then you need to note and be aware that the other one's broken, so if this fails in flight, you haven't got any. So quite important. And you'd be amazed as well how far away you can see other aeroplanes. So at night, on a clear night like this, if you were above the clouds and the sun had set, you'd get you can see just the nav lights from a long miles and miles away. They're quite effective, more effective than you think. Carter thinks that's a Toliss issue with the brakes. Yeah, it could be. I find it's worse when there's any sort of hill. Right, looks like Streamlabs is working. That's great. Tolly, yes, the runway is a complete angle. When you take off in the Airbus, you don't need to use any interwind aileron. Some aircraft, most conventional airliners, you would put a little bit of interwind. So that means just tilting the controls. Say the wind was on the left, you might put a little bit of left aileron in as you start your takeoff, just to keep the wind from getting underneath that wing and lifting it. But in the Airbus, it's not really necessary, although you could use a tiny bit. But what you don't want to do is accidentally have the spoilers coming up because you're putting that aileron in. Because that will obviously degrade your performance, and it can make it worse because it puts more weight on that wheel that is into wind, and that can help or encourage the airplane to turn that way as well. So it actually, yeah, it's a balancing act. But on the Airbus, we don't tend to need to do it. So yeah, that was an odd picture to have any sort of bank as we're rolling down the runway. Tango Delta, indeed. Yep, Toga takeoff today. Cam A321, hello. Thanks for joining us. How do you set the ATC assigned speed restrictions on the FCU? Well, if I want to fly, say air traffic told me now 280 knots, I'm just going to go, so it's 2 dots like that, which in the Toliss is pulling. So what you do is pull this, the speed knob. So see that? It pulls out, and then it's set to 290. And I'm actually going to set it to... Sorry, just not sure if that's air traffic talking to me. Yeah, so I can just pull and then select the speed they say. What I might do, guys, just bear with me just a second. I need to get the volume up. I can't hear air traffic control at all. How am I going to adjust that? Where on earth do I do that? Output volume? Is it the output volume? It may... I don't know if it's going to make it worse for you guys, so let me know if air traffic becomes too loud. Hopefully that's reasonable. Yeah, so that's how you would do that. There is another way. If you knew it was going to be a climb at a certain speed, we can just type in here. Something I've never tried. I don't think this will work. No, yeah, you can't type into there. But once you've selected, you can see what you've selected, and you can see what the airplane wants. So now, because the Mach number's changing, this is going to, they'll merge and change over. So at the moment, if I manage the speed, it will go to 286. So I can just manage it. And there we go, 286, back to where we were. And that's typically how you want to fly around. There's no point if you select everything all the time. You're just messing up your own predictions, really. And presumably you have a cost index and so on for a reason. Let's do that on flight plan. There we go. And let's see, any other questions? Philip Eckerberg, thanks for coming along. I'm doing very well. How are you? I hope you're enjoying the stream and having a good afternoon or morning, wherever it is. Although I'm judging by your flag, it is the afternoon. Oh dear, someone's getting in trouble. Usually me. Can A321 in real life ATC could assign speed restrictions not simulated? Yes, they can. They can change their mind. Tolly said, if I got cleared on the Fran 1 X-ray, Sid, what out am I cleared out? Chart takeoff? That'll be on your charts. So for our chart today, we did this one, and it said initial climb clearance, flight level 60. Now that would depend. Not all departures have that written down, but a lot do. If it's not written down, air traffic will tell you when you get clearance from them. So yeah, that's how you'd find that if you need it. Sometimes as well, you know, if you're just... Oh, I'm really not sure who that was for. But yeah, some SIDs will have it coded into here and you'll be able to see it as well. But that's not obviously how you do it in real life. Tolly has a great question. Say I accidentally activated the approach phase during takeoff or cruise. What would I do to get back to climb cruise? So this is something that not a lot of crews, well, it's something that took me a long time to learn, put it that way. So maybe I was not very bright. But if we, so what we're talking about is the approach phase. So once I activate the approach phase, which I can do now by accident. Oh no, it does work in the real airplane. You could accidentally do it, and then the speed will be green dot, and it will try and slow down, and then it's getting ready for the approach, as we know from the approach phase. Sadly, it's not working today. Maybe I'll try again once we've leveled off. It might work in the cruise. But basically, if you've done that and you find that you're already in the approach phase, and when you press perf, it comes to the approach page. So once you've activated it, all you'll get is this page, perf, approach. What you have to do is go to progress and type in your current flight level into there, and it will automatically go back to the cruise phase. So let's see what happens. Maybe it will only work once we're in the cruise. Yeah, you can just type it into there. So there you go, if you want to revert it. And I think I've tried that in the Toliss, and it worked. But certainly that's how we do it on the Airbus, if we need to. Cam A321. Excellent. Yep, glad you're getting there with the Airbus. It's quite different. The concept of pushing and pulling is something that you get used to, and it's really great. I mean, the fact that in the Airbus you can, with one control, I can set a new altitude, arm its capture, and then command it, all with one movement. It's amazing. Really great piece of ergonomic design. There's some airplanes where you have to do 3 or 4 buttons to get it to climb and level off, and that is just not very practical by comparison to this, which is just great. Yeah, really neat system. A really clever idea to have this pushing and pulling. I think the only thing I'd say is that on the real airplane, this whole thing moves, so including the back part there, but that's the most minor of detail. So let's put it to 1 dot manage. There we go. Getting close to our top of climb, looking pretty reasonable. I think we can get those seatbelts off now. You probably have some passengers wanting the toilet by this point. I wish they simulated the these orange blinds that come up. That'd be really nice. I know the some add-ons do on other flight simulators. Also, typically when you have terrain, it should show the blue water around you, but it doesn't seem to bother in the Toliss. Adrian Burt, good evening. What did you miss? Yes, if you can shield your eyes long enough to have a look at it. Oh, I think I've just moved the thrust levers by accident. I have terrible luck with that. There we go, thrust line. Yep. There's our new Simpilot livery. It's not released just yet. We're just finalising some details on it to make it fit for anybody who would like to use it, but I can understand that a lot of people may not want to. But there it is. Can't miss it. And I can show you this on the bottom now. There we go. Excellent. 320 Simpilot printed nice and neatly on the bottom, which again took my friend quite a long time to get right. So thank you to them for all their hard work. And here we are. TT Spectre, it is indeed bright. It's quite something. So hopefully someone might choose to use it. It's just a bit of fun, really, just to fit in with the channel. We've always had these bright colours on this channel right from the start, and to be honest, a bit of personal preferences. I'm going to do a few more. We're going to fiddle around with some different things once we can get some other techniques working that may be a little less bright. It's unusual to see full coloured fuselages like that these days. It used to be more common, but a lot of the time you'll notice that airplanes are pretty much white. And there is a great YouTube video, I've forgotten who's made it now, which talks about some of the reasons for that. And there are some reflectivity requirements. I don't know if it applies to the fuselage, but if you paint an airplane in a certain colour, it can heat up. So if you were to paint the fuselage completely black, and there were airliners that did have black paint, but it would absorb more heat. So you might find it difficult to cool down in the summer on the ground. It might be using up more fuel if it's trying to pump more air through it. All sorts of reasons. The other thing is the wings. You can't paint the wings any colour you feel like. They have to be a certain reflectivity as well to make sure. I'm assuming, I don't know, this is beyond my knowledge level now, but I think it's to do with fuel temperatures and so on. You can't just paint it whatever you feel like. Ariel F, thanks for coming along. And hope you're having a good day. Ian Morris, good evening. Thank you. I'm glad you agree that livery fits in with the channel. So there you go. That was its purpose. Just enjoy a bit of a wing view. Yeah, there we go. Now, if anyone knows which piece this is in the livery sheet, do please post it on the Discord, because we have been searching and had no luck over and over again. We've ended up painting all sorts of different things the wrong colour. So yeah, just that little piece of trim there is hidden away somewhere, and we're not sure where. Philip Beckerberg, we're going to Portugal, Lisbon. Lima Papa Papa Tango today. Quite a simple flight. It was just to show off the livery a little bit, or just to let you guys see it, really. And we luckily have VATSIM today for it. So somebody I think asked what are we using for ATC, and we are using VATSIM today. Captain Geo, glad you made it home safely. Excellent. Adrian Burke, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, absolutely. You'd need some sunglasses. I think it's probably best that we left a big chunk of the engine grey, otherwise that could be shining in and blinding the passengers for the whole flight, which wouldn't be so good.
Direct backfall for Liberia 582.
Window seats. Some aircrafts I delivered recently for S7 and Spirit are rather colourful liveries. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I think S7 have they're bright green, aren't they? So they're pretty bright. And you know, I think the blue would be. I don't think it'd be impossible to paint an airplane like this. There we go. Definitely looks better in the light. Let's get ourselves leveled off, and I'll see if those spinners are still looking as I expect. I'm not sure if they have different speed settings.
Europe 9164, Lisbon Control, hello, squawk 4741.
Cam A321. Sorry, I missed your question there, but yes, I think you've had the answer from Adrian. But yes, if you press Shift 2, so at the same time as each other, press Shift and then the number 2 on your keyboard, which I'll do now, and you get this lovely flyby view. So we're in our last 1,000 feet to go. All pilots around the world will get focused in, especially as you get closer to your level off, because it's so important you don't go through your level. We're also up in RVSM airspace now, so there's tighter restrictions on how far apart we can be. Altimeters get less accurate as you get higher, traditional ones. So there's more restrictions in place to make sure we can fly with just 1,000 feet separation up at these flight levels. So once you're above flight level, I think it's 290, you're going to have to obey these rules, which will be things like you need to use the autopilot, for example. I'm not. If we didn't have an autopilot, we're not supposed to be flying around up here. Certainly in Europe, that's the rule. I know America may be different, but yeah, there's a specific list of equipment we need to be operating with. And there we go. Out cruise. We're going to do the transponder. This controller's busy. Yeah, so transponder to below. And let's have our browse of the systems pages. All looking good. This, I think I've said before, this is not an option I'm familiar with, to be honest with you. So if anyone has seen this or knows what it does, I'm assuming that's the nacelle temperature. Although that could be utter nonsense. I really don't know. NAC, I don't know. So if anyone does know, please let me know. A bit embarrassing, but yeah, it's just an option. There's, like I say, there's loads of options the Airbus does and doesn't have, and that one I've not seen before. Tyre pressures, you know, is a more obvious one. They still haven't added the temperature. You can definitely see the fuel temperature in the tanks because you need to know if it gets too cold, you might have to descend or speed up, something like that. All looking good otherwise. Excellent. Yeah, this tyre pressure, this isn't on all airplanes. Just the temperature is, but not always the pressure. So there we go. Adrian Burke says, flew on Wow S321's bright purple. Yes, that's right. I've seen those. They're bright purple. Yeah, so maybe the fuselage is quite acceptable to paint whatever you feel like, I imagine. I think it's the wings, probably just with more restrictions. But as we all know, there's a lot of liveries that are just white on top. I suppose it's also easier, especially if you're an airline that does work for other airlines, so leasing airlines and so on. It's quite easy to just repaint the tail, things like that, if they're mostly white. Carter Joel has a great question about the nav lights. Some airlines switch between nav 1 and nav 2 on different sectors to give equal wear on the bulbs. Would that be something similar to your airline? No, I don't see that happen. In fact, officially, daylight flights, we could just turn them off because no one's going to see them in the daylight at all. You just need your anti-collisions, and they become a rule that you need them on as it gets dark, obviously. So it's an interesting one. It's become sort of quite common in aviation where people will leave these on anyway throughout the day. It just shows that the airplane has power, and there's people on board, which just might make people aware of the fact that the airplane is, energized as such. So you shouldn't move any hydraulics or anything like that on the ground. It's something we're very, very careful with on airplanes and airliners. We do not want to power the hydraulic systems by accident because there could be people working on it. I think I mentioned this in a previous video. So you're very careful of that. But having the lights on would just highlight that there are people working on the airplane, and maybe make people more aware. But then they wear out. In terms of switching them, yeah, so I could see the advantage if you swapped systems between flights and so on. You might wear out one system the same as the other. There is also some airlines work on the theory that turning lights on and off, because it's done on some lights will be done on time of use and some on cycles. So it could be that a cycle is, taxi light on and off. It could be a cycle, and it might be that you run out of cycles before the bulb would have worn out anyway. Things like that. So that's not something I personally see, but I could understand why some airlines might choose to do it. That would just be an airline thing, really. It's their airplane, how they want it done. But yeah, certainly, typically in Europe, you don't need them on in the daylight. Yeah, the Adrian Burke's talking about the LED bulbs. They're definitely brighter. You notice them when you're walking around, and I'm assuming they're a bit more hardy, so they can survive the a few rougher landings and so on than the older bulbs. It's one of the more embarrassing things if you land, park up, and then have to go and say, oh, one of the bulbs has gone, because there'll be an assumption that it was because of your landing. Look at that tailwind, yeah, 60 knots, excellent. Oh, he's closing. 1228. I can do that. I think that's right anyway. Well, keep an eye on the controller. Yeah, no nearby controllers. So yeah, so the LEDs are a bit brighter. Something that the sharklet airplanes have an issue with is that the you can't see. I don't think the Toliss does it. Oh yeah, it can. So if you look out over your shoulder, you can see the wing here like this, quite easily from the flight deck. Probably about that much of it, maybe a little bit less. Depends on a 321 actually. I tell a lie. On a 321, you can probably see that much. 320 and a 319, you can see a bit more. But on the 320 aircraft with the sharklets, the strobe light on the modern sharklet style lights is so bright that it actually lights up the flight deck a bit. So you'll be on approach, and you'll have this sort of flash appearing here every few seconds. So some people actually lower this blind to block it out because you're not using that window. And you can still see through the blind, worst case, but yeah, that does sometimes happen. It is a lovely day to fly Tango Delta, absolutely. Smooth, good tailwinds. I need to start getting ready for the arrival, really. So I've already made a small effort by clearing out some charts. LBPT. And there we are. Ian Morris says, what's the most typical system for what you get? Electric, hydraulic, navigation? That's a really tricky question. It probably depends a bit on the time of year. It is rare, you'll be pleased to hear, to have any sort of system fault. On the ground, systems get upset, so because of a lot of electrical changeovers. As we start up the APU, as we use a ground power, maybe you have a ground power unit that fails while you're using it, and then the airplane turns off, and then you have to restart it, that sort of thing. That can often throw up issues with all sorts. You'd be amazed, because it's, it is an electrical airplane at its heart, aside from the obviously fuel burning engines. So you get all sorts of different things that would appear here, and it might need a reset or something like that, or engineering to come and work with you to get it going and underway. But in flights, navigation errors, I suppose you're talking about things like this. Maybe some parts of the world the GPS can become a little bit unreliable. Maybe one of the navs goes, but that's very rare in flight, to be honest with you. Sometimes Airbuses have I think I've talked about it in previous videos, where right now the engines are at high thrust setting, so it's using the intermediate pressure turbine to power the packs and the air conditioning. And what can happen is these valves get cold as they're closed. So when you start your descent, that's when they're next going to open. Because once you go to low power, you need to get the air pressure from the higher pressure part of the engine. Because even at lower power settings, that's still got enough pressure to feed the air conditioning. Sometimes these get stuck. So as you start your descent, you may get a caution as they struggle to open, things like that. Another one is there's a fuel warning that can happen, which is not applicable to the 321 on the smaller Airbuses with the outer tanks. You'll know that sometime near top of descent or shortly after, the fuel will drain from the outer tank into the inner tank, and the inner tank is where it's used. And just for a moment, when that process starts, the low-level warning may come on to tell you that you're low on fuel in these tanks, which is obviously part of the plan, but it just that comes up quite often. David Doyle, good to see you. Thanks for coming along. Listening on the cell. Oh dear. I hope your computer finds its way back to life soon. But yeah, hopefully it works okay on your cell phone. And what else have we got? Thomas Mortimer, is there a headwind, tailwind, crosswind limit in the cruise? And Adrian Burke is quite right. There's no limit. Because effectively our limits are based on airspeed. There's no ground speed limits while we're flying around up here especially. So it's all about how much air is flowing over the airplane. So if we had a 200 knot tailwind but we were flying at 260 knots indicated airspeed, that would be absolutely fine. A question did come up recently on the Discord asking about this. Why am I only flying, why can you only fly at 260 knots here? And yeah, it's just to do with the Mach number. So as we climb, this red bar will get lower, lower and lower. And that will eventually mean that we can't have any speed around us, and that will be our ceiling. We can't go that high. That'll happen. You'd be alright at your recommended max, but it will happen very shortly after. So we don't, in the 321, most people don't go to the recommended max because it's too tight. In the smaller aircraft with the bigger wings, it's actually okay. It's a little bit more space. So that's based on all sorts of calculations of Mach number, and that's based on temperature and so on. Carter Joel saying, do you have any failures turned on? V1 has some to come up randomly to add to the experience of realism. I remember him getting an engine failure on one approach. That's a good idea. I keep forgetting to do that. So I think I'll do that. Oh, we can do that now. Although I haven't used the system much. Fault scenarios. I don't know what this number does though. So let's less flights. So 1. Flight time factor 1, so I assume that means it's realistic. We could probably up that a little bit, and we'll see. Maybe we'll increase that to try and get something. I haven't really done faults on the channel yet. We did engine failures in the cruise, but I haven't shown other things. So I might do that for some future videos. Sorry for the videos taking a bit longer, guys. I know I've been mostly streaming lately. It's just been a time thing where this has been more available for me to do, and it's quite fun getting the direct interaction with you guys and being able to answer questions as we go, and also getting to fly these routes. So that's why I do quite enjoy doing it. But there are some more tutorials planned in the future at some point. David Doyle, great question. An item that was bothered David for a few months is, what are the white and red balls in the window divider? And Dougal's already answered, absolutely. It's the visual aid for getting the seat position. So what you want is for these to line up effectively. So if I go to the right seat position, as you can see here, if I look at them, essentially the white ball should be blocked out by the red one. But it's not quite as simple as that. Because, well, firstly in X-Plane we just don't get a choice. This is the default position. I would probably stick to it. I mean, it just gives us a nice view around the flight deck. It's a bit tricky because obviously if you start, it's not so good for height. If you start too low, if I go down, that we can see the white, and then I can block out. If I go there, block it out. So it's white, 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 and then it blocks out, and that's probably the right position. If I keep going up, it's still blocked out in the real airplane. So you can be too high, and that doesn't really show you, but it does show you roughly an alignment point. Because I know in other airplanes, people use all sorts of things like, oh, can I see down here to the nose? Oh, there we go. Look, that's great. We can see our our blue planes on the nose. Excellent. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Something that's missing from the Toliss is the there's a little stick on here on the wiper, a little just a little plastic stick. It goes out into the airflow, and that has air rushing over it. So if you're in icing conditions and you see ice building up on that, you can know that there is ice building up on other parts of the airplane, and that's when you would use the wing anti-ice. But the Toliss has, I think, a system that would tell you if you have ice. I think it has the ice detector probes, which aren't fitted to all Airbuses, which amazed me when I first flew it. But yeah, not all Airbuses need it. You can just rely on looking out at that. Oh no, tell an absolute lie. Well, I'm talking absolute rubbish, guys. I'm really sorry. That is the ice detector probe on the Airbus. Excuse me, that is really embarrassing. Yeah, I'm talking about much older things, not Airbus related. There it is. That's the ice detector probe. So the ice builds up here on this because it's sitting right in the airflow. And there is a light for it, which is up on the overhead panel. And it is not the standby compass, not the dome, not the outsider. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? What on earth am I doing wrong? Wing nav beacon strobe. Standby compass. I think it's attached to this one. It should be attached to this. So standby compass and ice, effectively. So that one, yeah, it's normally written both, I think. But yeah, that lights up a little light, and maybe that's what's not fitted to the Toliss because the Toliss has the detectors. But on a lot of Airbuses, this is hollow and there's lights inside it, very faint. So you turn that light on, and then you'll be able to see if there's ice sticking out on it. There you go. Window seats corrected me already. So yeah, so that would be where you'd see it. But it's quite hard. Sometimes you have to use a torch at night to be able to see it because the light inside isn't that bright. What's quite useful is if you're flying somewhere like a big city, you'll be able to see it just from the glow of the city lights beneath you as you get lower down, which is more likely where you'd see the ice. Up in the cruise here with an air temperature of minus whatever we've got, 51 static air temperature, you're unlikely to see ice. Possible, there's a rare phenomenon, but it's rare. At this flight level, at these temperatures, usually any moisture in the air is already an ice crystal, so it can't attach to the airplane, and it should hopefully bounce off. But like I say, there is one phenomenon that does happen. Captain K, Peter again, thanks for coming along. I'm very good. I hope you're well. Mo says, imagine getting TCAS climb at recommended max. Yeah, that's not going to be a comfortable situation. Now, the recommended maximum does have a little bit of breathing space, so even there you should have some buffer. But yeah, it would be very hard, very nasty place to get a TCAS to climb. Cam A321, there's not much flying going on at the moment, which is why I'm still able to do these, but there is hopefully more flying coming up soon as we get further on into July. Pavel is flying behind. Excellent. What is the active runway in LPPT? There's no ATC. Well, I'm assuming it's 03, but I will need to check that shortly because I don't know. They have a couple of runways, as we can see here. So let's bring them up. Airports, and wow, they got loads. Airport charts. So. I think it's a northeasterly wind, so I would assume 03. But it could also be, I think it's 35 is the other one. So I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do here because there's probably a few airplanes around. So we have to have a look. Yeah, Matteo, I think I probably... I'm not sure. It's probably a bit low, as we can see. Probably somewhere there is about right. It's a bit easier to see over the shield, so yeah, maybe that would be a bit more normal. It's a bit hard to tell, to be honest with you. It's one of those things that your eyes would usually line up with that. So I don't know. It's not too bad. It's just tricky because your field of view is so restricted in the simulator. It's probably a bit lower than some of us realise. The Airbus has quite a good field of view out the front window, so you don't have to sit quite as high to get the same down view as you would in others. But yeah, I think this is probably a bit low, a little bit low. Somewhere there feels a bit more natural. There's some airliners where these screens are effectively, I know they're only just above your feet, but they're even lower, right next to your feet. Ah, there you go. Matteo says it's attached to the standby compass. It says ice in above it. Yeah, am I missing something here? Standby compass, int light. I don't know. I'm sure it should be written. Normally it'd be written on there anyway, because that's otherwise it lights up this, which isn't going to work. Oh, there it is. Yeah, the standby compass, which we leave tucked away unless we need it. (310) @ 9 is the wind in Lisbon. Thank you, Adrian. So expecting to, yeah, one of the northerly facing runways. Ah, Matteo, there you go. Thank you. Yeah, great. It's funny. It's one of those things because, as I said, I haven't seen the plane. You know, I haven't been seeing it much the last few months. There's been a little bit, but there's also been a lot of simulator stuff. But it's not something I've been focused in on where that's written. It's just something you sort of know and you just reach up and it's there. But yeah, so thanks. It's normally written above that. I wonder if that's because, like I say, this airplane has the ice indicators, I think, which will be little sensors that stick out and they will tell us if we have ice. I don't know though. I haven't used that system on the Airbus. I've used it on other airplanes and it's very good. It will flash up with a warning telling you that there's ice outside, and this can just be the backup. But as I said, the Airbus is totally fine to go with just this little indicator. Oh yeah, Adrian Burke's talking about the approach cruise. Let's have a go. Perf, activate. No, it's just not having it. Oh, there we go. It has. Be a bit patient. So, whoops, we've accidentally done this. Now let's hope I can correct it. So now it's going to come back to green dot, as we know, because it thinks it's in the approach phase, and you can see the actual target speed is back down at 144, which is our approach speed that's calculated. So I'm hoping, and what you do normally, we're at 340, so if I type in 340 as a cruise, stick that in, and it goes back to cruise phase. So you have that option there, and there we go, back up to our target cruise speed. As you can see though, we're going to have to sit at 88% maximum climb thrust now to get that to accelerate. They are really slow to accelerate from those low speeds. Ah, thanks, Carter. Okay, so there's a bit of advice about the factor. So let's see. I wonder where they got that information from. So let's try a factor of 10. See if that works. Okay, right, now let's work out what I'm going to do is cheat and look ahead at that map. If anyone knows the runway in use, typically, obviously, yeah, we would get the ATIS to tell us, but Lisbon looks pretty quiet. Does look pretty quiet. So I'm going to plan to land in on 03. Adrian, yeah, it is. It's good to know. They've done a good job. There's lots of little details like that Toliss have added in, which is really nice. So I'm going to plan on arriving onto 03, which is what I had tuned in, and then we'll adjust as required. Now, a lot of charts here. There's quite a bit of terrain around to the north, but as we can see, 03, there you go. I think that would be the standard runways they would use here. Approach, we're using the unpots. I always get these two in this Jefferson order the wrong way around. Right, it's arrival, not approach. There we go. And we're on the 8 Alpha, which as you can see will be a traditional RNAV style arrival. Let's get these charts up full screen. I don't know why I spent so long doing that. There we go, much better. Nope, that's no good. Oh, well, something like that. There we go. So, unpots, 250 knots, flight level 190. Let me zoom in. Plan, zoom right in. Unpots, straight leg to Papa Tango 418. Right turn, ECMAR. Papa Tango 420, max 220. And you can see it's a bit of an arc. And then 421, 422, PESX, Centrefix, and then the ILS. I don't know what all this other bit is about. I don't even know. I've never seen it. It seems to be glitching. It shouldn't be doing this. Let's try and retune that arrival. Maybe I missed something. ILS 03. Maybe it wants us to put in the via. Nope. I don't know. It seems peculiarly upset. It wants us to be very high. I think that's the problem. It's planning us to be at silly flight level 340 at these waypoints because our descent, top of descent was clearly way wrong. Something that you learn to watch out for. It's not usually this wrong, but you do need to be careful. And that's why when we're setting up, so we looked at our flight plan, RadNav. Again, I always talk about the fact that the ILS is tuned a bit late in the Toliss. Approach, ILS runway 03. And there it is, 109.1. But this one actually has a Cat 2.3, so we could do an autoland here if we wanted to. Have a look at that. I haven't done an autoland before, but it's up to you guys really what you want to see. But there we go, 1091 is. Oh, it's tuned. Talking nonsense then. India Lima, India 1091. I wonder if that's because I activated the approach phase, pseudo accidentally. Maybe that helped trick it. But there we go. Progress page, and this is where it's well worth putting in Lima Papa Tango 03. And now I can see 194. So I always work in my head. 120 miles is from a cruising level. I need to be starting in my descent. Thank you very much for subscribing. Willigan, sorry, I missed it slightly on the screen, but thank you for subscribing. I hope you're enjoying the stream. Yeah, so there we go. So that gives me a better idea. So I could see here there's no top of descent arrow, so I knew something was wrong in that coding. And I think it's to do with the altitudes. It wants us to be way too high. So we can see it here. How far is PESX from the runway? Let's have a look. If we bring up the ILS plate, PESX is 11 miles from the runway. So at PESX, we want to be not at flight level 340. That's really bizarre. I've never seen anything like that. At PESX, I want to be at 4,000 feet. So I'm going to select it on the right there. Altitude constraint. It has 4,000 or above. Well, I'm going to say no. I want to be at 4,000. And now it's upset because it can't make it. Let's see if that's improved things. So now it's calculated lower altitude and we got a top of descent arrow. And maybe the speeds and so on will look better, because the reason I think it was showing us all that rubbish was because it couldn't fly around those turns, because at flight level 340 turning takes a lot of effort. There we go, down, Papa Tango 421, left turn, Papa Tango 422, PESX, I see, and then it wants to turn around and go to the Centrefix 03. There's something really wrong here. So what I'm going to do is take out let's just check, is that the right arrival? Definitely via PESX. If I take out CF03 and insert that. Now you wouldn't do this for an RNAV, that would absolutely not be acceptable. But we're going to fly a radio nav 8 approach. So there we go. So now that's starting to sequence. We've got 4,000 feet at PESX. And yeah, cool. So that's something better. And we still got all our points in before that, so we know we can fly this arrival. Good. Solved, hopefully, to some extent. Willigan 03-12312. There you go. Thanks for subscribing. Ah, Carter, thanks for checking the forum. That number. Yeah, I couldn't quite work it out straight away. Dougal says they prefer flight factor over the Toliss. Ah, very good. Yeah, I do like the look of the flight factor. It's just I'm skeptical of my computer's ability to run it. Captain Dutchy, thanks for coming along. I hope you're doing very well, and I'm glad you're enjoying the livery. Excellent. Hope a few people got a good laugh out of it anyway over the day. Yeah, great. Thanks for coming. Thomas Mortimer sounds like Thomas, you're in a similar situation to me in the flight factor. I have to be careful with it, and I suspect I'd have problems performance-wise. Right, let's get some weather in. This is a really great feature of having all these charts and so on available here. So we've done flight plan, radnav, progress, per QNH. Worth being careful of. 1015. It's slightly high. It's not too far from standard, so that's pretty good. 32 degrees. Flaps need to stay out on the ground. Easy to forget. 320 at 10. Yeah, so probably you'd find that people will write flaps somewhere just to have it as a reminder somewhere around in the flight deck. And we'll do a flap full landing. We'll obviously check our landing performance. And there we go. Because in that hot weather, yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to go flat full and low water brake to try and keep the brakes cool. That would be something worth doing. Flap 3 would potentially just heat them up more. So flat full has a bit more drag, slower approach speed, so it puts us in a better position. Now we'll check the go around for that ILS. Off of 03. Really nice go around. Look at that. Climb straight ahead to flight level 70 contact approach. So it's pretty good. The only downside is if we're on one engine, yeah, it's going to have to be 7,000, and we have to climb all the way to 7,000 feet. That could take a while, and we can't run the engines at Toga for more than, if we're on one engine, we get 10 minutes, on two engine, 5 minutes. So we need to time that just to be sure, because if we're really heavy and it's really hot, that could be an issue. Probably not. Probably not. MSA's a bit higher up there. Let's put in a little ring to remind ourselves of that terrain. So reference fix. What's it based on? It's based on the Lisbon, Lima, India, Sierra. How are we doing? Where's our descent? Let's put that back to arc just to see. Looking good. There it is. It should show you the closest one first. So obviously, yeah, we can check the frequency, but we know that we want to be 100 miles away is about right. And it's the 118. Although this is shown the opposite way to some other charts. So anyway, 118 is one of them, and 298, they're reciprocal. That's good. 298. And now we have some sort of an idea. And if I just put a 20-mile ring, that might help make it clear to us. Now we zoom out, and yeah, so we know south of that line. Have I got that right? 118, 298. Let's put that to plan. Yeah, there we go. Plan makes life easier. Orientates everything to north if you're having difficulties working out which way up you are. Ryan Videos, thanks for coming along. Yes, the livery is still a slight work in progress. As we passed 1,000 subs, I wanted to show it off for a little bit to you guys. I know a few people have mentioned they'd like to see one, so that's why we got it, just for a bit of fun. Corrosive Moon has a quick question, so please put it in. Adrian Burke, wouldn't the remaining engine climb on MCT? Well, you'd use MCT if you had an engine failure now, which is max continuous thrust, so we can fly around at MCT all day. We are obviously at the moment limited to climb thrust, because on two engines we don't need MCT, but we could do. I could just set that to MCT, but it will force the engines up to it now. Whereas if we're on one engine, by leaving it at MCT, it'll just stay in with the auto thrust. However, we wouldn't be able to stay at 340 on one engine. But when you go around, you're going to use Toga, especially on a single engine go around, just the maximum thrust. So that's why there's just some time limits on it. Corrosive Moon, talking about thrust reduction and acceleration altitudes for noise abatement. It says reduction acceleration altitude at 1800. This is ASL above sea level. Yep, on the Airbus it's usually at 1500. Do we add the 300? So these are altitudes, those noise abatement procedures. Now, for the go-arounds, I wouldn't have, unless there's a performance reason, you don't tend to have, there's no noise abatement on a go-around typically, so you wouldn't adjust this for that. If you're talking about on takeoff, then yeah, you can adjust this to whatever you need it to be. So the Toliss defaults it to 1500 feet above sea level. Sorry, no, it doesn't. It does 1,500 feet above the airfield, which is why it's showing as 1870, and that's what it defaults to. But some Airbus operators have that automatically to set up. You can choose. So some will have it set to 1,000, or maybe some will have 1,500 and 3,000, which we know is ICAO procedure, NADP 1, and so on. So you can adjust it as required. Yeah. So if I wanted to make that, I can make that. If I did 1370 and 1870. you know, you can just put it in if you need to. But like I said, for go arounds, no, I tend to leave it at 1,000 and 1,000. But it depends what your, like I say, what your airline sort of standard is. But we're not worried about noise payment if we go around. That's just sadly one of those things. Right, so how far are we now? Looking at 120 miles. There we go, and that's highlights our top of descent. Now, 120 miles, you probably don't need to start your descent if you're at flight level 340, but we do today because of the tailwind. That's not helping it, which may not even be in the box, actually. It does have this issue, the Toliss rate doesn't load it in, so that may be adjusting the predictions slightly. So let's just check there's no controller around before I get in trouble. No, it looks clear. And see if anyone's around. There's our livery for you to enjoy for just a few moments. Cool. Right, let's start down then. So we'll start off with no flight 100 is safe. And let's put in Des. Thrust idle Des and start down. Cam is asking, and that is when the auto thrust reverts to climb. Yeah, so that's when this will change from SRS to climb as you pass the acceleration. So there's two parts to it. For the go around and for the takeoff. So in this, thrust reduction is when it will flash lever climb here, and that's when you'd bring the thrust levers to the climb gate. And then acceleration is when SRS will change to climb mode and it will lower the nose and start to accelerate. Absolutely. Thomas Mortimer, on the next live stream, could you do an auto thrust off landing? Yeah, we can do auto thrust off. Yeah. What I was thinking of doing today is we'll have a look at the go around. We haven't done a go around on the live stream yet. So I was hoping there'd be air traffic and we could sort of talk to them about it. But as we can see, our go around here, if we need to use it, is straight ahead, flight level 70. After that, we're going to bring ourselves back around. So let's have a bit of a plan as to how we might do that. So normally air traffic, almost certainly, especially in an airport like Lisbon, would vector you back around. So let's just pick up a few details from the ILS. It's a 3-degree glide slope, very important we know that in this hot temperature. I'm going to be by PESEX 11 miles out, flap 1 and below 200 knots. That way, as soon as we start down the glide slope, I want to be putting flap 2 out and reducing the speed at the latest. And then we can come down and configure from there. Minimum we need to put in. So I didn't quite finish the performance bit, did I? MD8, 529, we're at Cat 1 ILS, 529. And as we said, we could do an auto land. Or maybe we'll do auto thrust off. We'll have a look. Auto thrust off is very similar to normal, really, except you just close the thrust levers yourself and the thrust comes off with you for the landing. Normally, we land with it in the climb gate. We don't land, sorry. We land with it on approach route in the climb gate, and before touchdown, we bring it to idle thrust. It's just used like a switch from there straight to there. But yeah, so 529 minima, flat 4 landing, and there we go. There's circling where we're not going to circle. If we go around 70, and it looks to me, let's see if we can bring up some. There's usually quite a good chart I like, the radar minimum altitudes hidden away. Back. Airports. Oh, it's in reference. Usually it's in reference. Here we go, radar minimum out. So this is where air traffic might try and radar vector you. So you can see it's 25 off to the right. So at 70, we could bring ourselves round to the right, downwind, start our descent, get ourselves back rounded in. But we'll see how busy the traffic is, where we can go. Hopefully they'll show up on TCAS in that case. I don't really know what the rules are. If we go around, usually airlines have an SOP of some variety where you'll say go around and flaps on the Airbus. And all we have to do, as you've seen, I've got a go around tutorial out there. You stick the thrust levers to toga and make sure that everything is changing up here. So you're going to have man toga. It's saying man because it's you're manually commanding toga. SRS and go around track. A lot of real airplanes now will automatically then engage nav mode and fly the go around, but we don't have that on the Toliss, I don't think. So we'll need to simply engage it ourselves by pushing nav. But before we do that, once the airplane's started this process, move the flaps in one stage. So it's called go around flaps because we're going to set toga and obviously fly the go around, and at the same time the other pilot will move the flaps in one stage. That's for a normal go-around, not a rejected landing. So you move the flaps in a stage because we don't want all that drag flap out for the go-around. And then once we're positive climb, gear up, and then make sure we're in nav mode and the autopilot and so on. Now it's quite hard for pilot, so again, I always find it difficult doing these things single pilot in the simulator. So do forgive me if I make a mistake as we do it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, so that'll be the plan. Then bring ourselves right downwind, and just to give you a chance, hopefully I can show you how you might set up the box, unless it does anything too surprising to me. But generally, it's really quite simple. It's really good. If you're diverting, it's slightly different. I know Matteo asked if we could do a diversion, but it's a bit too far away to the diversion today, and just to keep the time under control, I will do that in another video. But it's a great idea to have a go at diverting as well. I know my last stream ran on for a bit long, so I'm a little bit more conscious of the time today. David Doyle, thank you so much. I'm really glad you like the livery. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you everyone for being so very kind about it, because I appreciate this may not be to everybody's tastes, but I thought it was a bit of fun. And it's certainly, it's part of the branding of the channel by this point, so it seemed a shame not to use that. And there we go, as we come down with the sun setting. I will also obviously do a Neo engine for it as well, which isn't done yet. We got the CFM and the IE, but not the one for Carter's Neo. And now you can see what I was talking about with the tail. That blue line runs pretty much flush with the horizon. Got the European flag. Obviously, we spend all our time at the moment flying around in Europe, so I couldn't see why not. One little detail I'm supposed to point out is you might have spotted that from my friend designing the engines. It's a great paint kit from Toliss. I love all these stickers and details, really nice. These doors aren't actually on both sides on the real engines, but they're actually on the same side. But yeah, still really good. One thing I haven't solved is, let me see if I can see it on here. I'm not sure, this is a problem on a lot of liveries. I don't know why it stays that shade, but there it is. I think there was, or is, one airline that has a light blue colour scheme. They used to fly from Luton. I think it was a French airline offering premium service flights. So they had a 757, I think it was, which was painted up in light blue, and it was blue and black, I think, and it was all business class, or maybe even all first class, I'm not sure. I can see a few other details. This antenna, we could paint that pink, I think. And yeah, the overhead, some of these should really be pink. Blue, sorry, they should be blue. There we go, Matteo says it reminds him of the slushy machine at the cinema. So there you go, yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. But that's great, yeah, it has that sort of feel to it. Let's just see what I've missed while I've been enjoying the views. Standard for me would be to miss something in here. So, right, there we go. Still descending to 100. Still no air controllers out there, so we're pretty much doing what we fancy. Can't see any TCAS ahead of us. So, I'm going to leave it on constraints. I've got the ILS approach sequenced. Excellent. So, something you can expect if you see these. I think I've talked about it before. I'd normally tune in a hold if I was worried about holding, but otherwise these are flown in this sort of long arc so that you don't have to hold, and then you'll be flying along here and you can see low speed, 220 knots, so 220 knots, poodling along, waiting for your chance to turn in. Dublin has a similar system, we used it going there. And then when it's your turn, you get taken off, so hopefully you don't have to fly the whole thing. This is quite a short one, there are some longer ones out there. There you go. Window seat knows the airplane I was talking about. La Compagnie. They have a 321 LR Neo. So have they got rid of the 757? That maybe they have. There's not many 757 operators left, sadly. But yeah, maybe they have. Right, so let's get ourselves ready. So yeah, so I think we'll head in, we'll do a go around, then we'll radar vector ourselves, just to have a look at the coding. Like I say, I was sort of hoping for air traffic control. There's some other things in the go around. So I was asked on the Discord by Matteo, who asked, as a percentage, what do I think in comparison of the real aircraft? What percentage does the Toliss simulate it in terms of workload, procedures, systems? And it's a really great question. It's really hard to answer, because it just depends so much on what you're doing. So for normal systems and so on, it's great. You know, we've got the packs and so on, but there are details that are missing. I think I've talked before. For example, if I wanted the engine anti-ice on now, say we're in cloud, in the real airplane, that would spool up the engine slightly, and then the airplane wouldn't descend as I wanted. So I'd have to use a bit of speed brake, stuff like that isn't quite modeled. So there's a few things that are missing, but generally normal procedures is pretty good. For abnormal procedures, it's a bit tricky. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are a bit lacking in the ECAM. But that could be, I say lacking, I really mean it's a different fit of Airbus. I've said this many times. There's just so many variations that even the ECAM instructions will be different depending on the update of the aircraft and so on. So I wouldn't expect Toliss to be able to keep on top of the latest version. And that's why there's no such thing for me as a pure, I've heard the phrase study level home simulator. There's some great aspects to it though, no doubt, especially if you're practicing some of the more basic stuff like needle tracking and so on. But in terms of practicing complex ECAMs, you might get a representation, but it's not going to be usable in real life because, like I say, that you've got to stick with the real deal, the real manuals. They'll tell you what you're going to get on your airplanes, and your airline will train you accordingly, obviously. But no, it's really good for the normal procedures. I do enjoy it. Obviously, the multi-crew thing is the other issue where we don't have another pilot with us, which is what creates a fair bit of, a lot of our day job as pilots now is we interact with the airplane, obviously, through the autopilot and so on, but also interacting with crew and our briefings and crew outside the flight deck and so on, which are all huge parts of the job. So fitting that in and doing it in the right way and keeping communication as clear, that can take up, on the ground especially, that's a lot of the work. Because setting up the airplane, as you see, we can do it relatively quickly. I am Dimitri, sadly not. No, I don't own the Flight Factor A320. It really does appeal to me, but I struggle. Oh, there we go. I think we're safe to descend further here. I know we're safe. The MSA is about to become 3,000 as we head in there. 4,000 minimum, so let's put it to 4,000. And we're going to set that QNH, which we took as 1015. There it is. Guess we get below 10,000 feet. Let's get those LS buttons on because we're going to fly an ILS. Let's get the landing lights on. Could be lots of VFR traffic. Let's get the seatbelts on. As I say, I would like the Flight Factor 320, but I'm concerned about the performance. Now it's updated for Vulcan, there's perhaps more hope, but as you can see in the Toliss I get 45, and I hear that the Flight Factor is perhaps one of the more frame rate hungry simulations, but it does look very nice, and I do like the 320 as an aeroplane as well. I like it a lot. Okay, here we go, first point. So you'd probably expect at some point to be taken straight in for the ILS. Let's have a look how far, 27 miles, 10,000. So if we were straight in now, we'd be a little bit high. So we'd need to be careful of that because the box is planning us to fly around this whole arrival. It's also going to decelerate to 220 knots shortly. Oh, there you go, window seat really knows their aeroplanes. Is that the fit in the La Compagnie 321, is it, window seats? Offset interior, 45-inch seats. Yeah, excellent. David, I will be making this livery available when it's totally finished. Just the last few details and polish to go on it. We'll be putting it up on the Discord, absolutely. Right, let's make sure we get this. What name? This just says Lisbon, Portugal. He knew the other name for it. Okay, let's just make a quick broadcast of traffic. Lisbon traffic, Manta 1, Airbus A321, joining the arrival, currently 30 miles out to fly the ILS 03. I think that's Ilagan. When do you usually activate the approach phase? Oh, here we go. Sorry, just getting contacted. 1191. Ah, now this could mess everything up. Maybe all my planning that I have assumed has been for nothing. 1191. Lisbon approach, Manta 1, descending altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1015 on the arrival for the ILS 03, and we have QNH 1015.
Clear down, let's approach runway 03.
Apologies, I missed the first part of that message. Could you repeat for Manta 1?
Manta 1, Lisbon, sorry, good evening, it's an altitude 4,000 feet, QNH 1015, clear down, let's approach runway 03.
Descend 4,000 feet, QNH 1015, cleared for the ILS 03, Manta 1. 4,000 feet, cleared for the ILS. I'm not going to arm the approach. We shouldn't really do that until we're pointing towards the runway, but we are going down to 4,000 feet, which we know is safe and is the platform altitude. Right, don't need that. We're going to leave that to norm. Barometer, approach check. So, when do I activate the approach phase? Well, typically somewhere shortly after 10,000 feet. Probably somewhere now, to be honest. No point doing it before 10,000. On the real airplane, once you activate it, it changes all the calculations and the airplane will be working on slower calculations. So it's nice to leave it a bit later, but you don't want to forget, because otherwise, of course, when you manage the speed, you could go to 250 knots or something silly.
Descend into flight level 60, flight director Papa Tango 421, Alpine 7640.
Dougal. There you go, information alpha. Dougal is talking about the Simwings. So Simwings provides simulator gear to people who are otherwise unable to afford it. Oh, there we go. So it's activated. It wants to come back to 200 knots. It's not going to do that. It will stop at VLS, but I can do flap 1 and get our speed back to S speed. Let's just keep an eye on. We're 20 miles out, so we don't need to go much slower than S speed. I assume, yeah, we had 200 knot restriction there. Something they typically expect you to be ready for. Although you could ask air traffic if you don't have to fly it. 205 knots is probably acceptable. I don't want to put more flap out here, so I'm just going to do 200 knots selected speed. Right, now we're pointing in towards the runway within 20 miles. It seems reasonable, so I'm going to arm the approach. Speed, glide star, lock star, and we can set that. 7,000 is in. Yeah, very high go around altitude today. Right, so as I said, I need to be careful now because I need flap 2 out. If we do a 3-degree approach from here, the speed could start to run away. So I'm going to wait till 15 miles and then I might put out flap 2. We'll see how we're doing with the speed. Yeah, Dougal organises Simwings, who provides simulator gear to those people who may not be able to afford it, because as we know, this is an expensive hobby. And they do a group flight every month, which you can join in for a small donation, and it'd be coordinated with routes. And I think the last one was the Greek Islands, and before that they were in New Zealand. And then first donation to the charity, and then you can join in with the fun there. So that's what Dougal's talking about. So hopefully the next one I can do, because I know the last couple, unfortunately, I've been busy. As I said, we have little bits of flying and also simulator work going on. Right, here we go, arriving into Lisbon. Let's hope my graphic settings are able to cope with this. Excellent. There's the runway. We're through 15 miles. I'm going to just put out flap 2. Really, we could be, let's bring it back to 180. It's just because of this hot temperature. But yeah, we could do, as I said, 200 knots to 10 miles is normally possible, but when it's hot and you're a bit heavy, that could be a bit trickier. Something you sort of get used to. Come on, simulator, you can do it. Keep up. Right, so there's some great scenery in Lisbon normally, but obviously I don't have the real stuff. I think it's here. would this be? People correct me. There's that fantastic bridge which looks like a copy of the version of the Golden Gate Bridge, isn't it? Which is amazing. So if anyone's been, do let me know. Philip, thanks for coming back. Hope you're enjoying it.
Aproximação da capital, muito boa tarde.
Window seat, I'm using VATSIM.
Resolution 205, international, request clearance to the ship.
180 knots. Okay, so if we were concerned about a go-around, maybe we were unstable, then I would be looking at the fuel. I'm going to look at the fuel anyway. We got loads of fuel. We saved fuel with that tailwind, it seems, even though that should have been accounted for in our flight plan. But as a result, we got plenty of fuel to go around and come back. We also had 700 kilos of extra contingency fuel, which is definitely higher than normal. Cam A321, could you explain why you need to activate AP2 when nearing the approach phase? You don't need to. I could turn it off, but then we'd be Cat 3 single. Total lands 03 Manta 1. Yeah, it could, but then we're Cat 3 single. So we can auto land, but it's not as good as Cat 3 dual, which gives us lower required visibility, so we can fly in worse weather. So if you have it available, we always arm both. And in case one fails, the other one can take over. But yeah, you can fly it on either AP2 or AP1, like that. The auto thrust has 2 channels, but if you have both autopilots engaged, it will work on channel 1. Otherwise, it uses whichever side you're using. Right, 7.5 miles. I think we can start coming back to 160 knots now. He's already cleared us to land. Got the approach rates activated. So yeah, we'll go in for our go-around. Fantastic scenery. I'm really pleased it's keeping up. This is the Vulcan update. This would not have been possible until recently, guys. So I hope, I hope you're enjoying it. There we go.
Livery 144, information Alpha, current runway 03.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a lovely city, if any of you have been.
7604, descent 4000 feet.
So, why might we go around? Well, it could be that we're unstable. It could be that the cabin isn't ready, so for whatever reason, there's an issue. It could be that you have a technical fault. If we have a big technical fault now, we don't want to be landing until we're sure we know what's going on, unless there's a safety reason to do so. But let's fully configure. So, gear down, manage speed. Once the gear comes down, we arm those, set the lights on. Flaps 3. Quite a fast approach speed. Ground speed is quite high, yes, 152. And flap 4. And now we are just waiting on the cabin. Well, we'll leave it as if, let's say, very rare, but it is potentially possible, I suppose. No, we won't do that. Let's say the cabin crew's ready. We'll just say, if they're traffic hours, we'll say we're unstable. Which is, because they often ask, they want to know if there's a problem for the airplane behind you. So there you go. We are pretty much stable at 1,000 feet, but even if you're stable here, you may decide you're not stable later on. Coming in over the water, excellent scenery. Love it. Yeah, really nice.
Approaching 03.
There's our RAS. And let's say we decide to go around now. Well, we can do it with the autopilot. Some airplanes can't, but we absolutely can. And like I said, it should sequence. I would expect to see the blue line straight ahead, but it doesn't seem to be coded. But we know straight ahead flight level 70. So let's give it a go. So I'm not sure who that is. Right, go around flaps. Through to Mantoga, SRS go around track. Flaps are going to move up to flaps 3. And away we go. So these FMAs, Mantoga, SRS go on track, are all good. Positive climb. Gears coming up. And now I need to make sure we go into nav mode. So I push that and we get that straight ahead. And now it turns pretty much into a takeoff. So we're going to go through our 1,500 feet above the airport, which we know is about 1,800. But I changed it earlier, so there we go. So 2 clicks back again, thrust climb, auto thrust. Now it goes into open climb. It's interesting. It's really struggling there. I wouldn't expect the real airplane to do that. So the nose is coming down. And a little bit of let them know. Manta 1 going around. And off we go. So now normal flap retraction schedule. So above the F-speed we'll go to flaps 1. And we'll see where we are with the box. We also need to go to standard. Right, through the F, flaps to 1. Manta 1 going around. Has he gone? How about this? Ah, sorry, thank you. Okay, so the tower's away. Ah, that was only so good, but there we go. So we're now climbing away. You can see normal sort of takeoff retraction schedule now. We're going to set standard because we're going up to flight level 70. And I would imagine he wants us to turn downwind, but Manta 1, we've gone around, climbing straight ahead, flight level 70.
Manta 1 Lisbon, Roger, turn right heading 180.
Right, heading 180, Manta 1. Right, there we go, and this is what would typically happen. You'd start to get instructions from air traffic control. Heading 180, above the airspeed, flaps to 0. And I don't want to go to 250 knots. No point. Let's do 230. I need time once I'm downwind to sort of, you need to talk to the cabin. But there we go, flaps to 0. Disarm. Lights off.
Speedbird 1440 in 4,000 feet, QNH 1015.
Right. 180. Heading to the right. We know we're safe. We're above the MSA. We're going to control that vertical speed now. Let's set 1500 feet per minute because there could be airplanes coming down above us on approach.
Manta 1, stop climb flight level 60.
Stop climb flight level 60, Manta 1. Right, first of all I'm going to push that. Now let's set 60. Okay, now very carefully, vertical speed 500, out blue 60 is in. Good, so it's okay. Probably didn't need to do that, but the quickest way to level off will be push to level off if you need it. But once you've done that, you've got to be very careful to select the modes and get the armed altitude next. So flight level 60. You do your after takeoff climb checklist typically, or a version of that. Maybe you have a go around checklist. And now if you look in the box, look at this, it's genius. The Airbus, as ever, does so much for us. It's pretty much ready to go. It knows we did a go around. It's got the approach phase ready to be activated, so we'll just activate that. There it is. If I look on the flight plan, what have we got? Back to unpot, then a whole arrival, so it's ready to come back in again.
Right heading 205.
Right heading 205, Manta 1. So, as I said, this came up on the performance page. I just had to, well, I've already done that. Activate the approach phase again. It's not working now. That's a shame. It worked a second ago. Normally, the page we had up would have done it, and then that would just activate it. It seems to be a bit confused about sequencing. So there we go, we're level now. Let's get ourselves ready to fly that again. So what I'm going to use this time is just going to be the reverse. So the reciprocal. So we're going to do a radial in. I'm just going to pick the point. So let's go for maybe he won't even send us via PESIC, so I'm going to do it right from the runway 206. There seems to be a mismatch here. Descend 4,000 feet, QNH 1015, Manta 1.
Speedbird 144, Lisbon, confirmed normal operation.
4,000 feet. So, QNH 1015.
You seem to turn left after remote.
And did that work with our radial in? Don't have intercepts, so we need to pull heading again. So now we're descending to 4,000 feet on the QNH. We know it's safe. Hopefully.
Right heading 200.
Why didn't that work? Must have done it from the wrong one. Right, let's do it from there. Take in 206 and insert. No intercept. But there we go. There's our extended center line. Yeah, there seems to be an issue. Normally you'd have a center fix or some other waypoint you could use instead of having to use the runway like I've just done. And now, just like in my radar vectoring video, here we are. What are we? Just over 5 miles, 6 miles of beam. And it tells us down here 6 right, 6.0 right. And we're heading downwind.
Manta 1, turn right heading 250, descend 3,000 feet.
Descend 3,000 feet, right heading 250, Manta 1. There you go, he's cutting us in now, so we need to be ready for that. So let's go manage speeds. The approach phase is active. And I'm going to put out flap 1. I'm going to use a bit of speed brake. Just want to be ready for this approach. So we're going to fly maybe a 9-mile final, if that. So we need to be at 3,000 feet. So yeah, we are a little bit high here. So let's get, if I reduce the vertical speed first, so that the speed comes back, once it's below our flap 2 speed, we can get out some drag flap. Although he's still taking us away. What I might do is I'll do a thrust idle open descent. And we'll just see where we end up, because it's a bit hard to tell really. You just don't want to not be able to make it on your second approach. Fuel-wise, we'd look at that, 4.2 tons, plenty of fuel. We can still divert even. And cabin you'd talk to, probably do some sort of PA to the passengers. Certainly you'd talk to the cabin crew. Although they'll be familiar with what's going on, they'll have some idea. Right, we're 9 miles from the runway, but we've still got a few miles across to fly. So 9 miles to the threshold. We're still pointing away 3 miles across. So 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 miles at least to run, 4,000 feet.
So once you're right heading 290.
Right heading 290, Manta 1. So actually we are doing pretty well on altitude versus distance. Looking good.
Manta 1 and right heading 340, clear down, let's approach runway 03.
Runway vacated via Hotel November, Alpine 7604.
Manta 1, confirm clear down, let's approach runway 03.
Apologies, cleared ILS 03, Manta 1. Oops, sorry, I was talking to myself, I think, for a second there. Yeah, so we're pointing towards the airfield. I've armed the approach. Where is it going? There we go, 340. Glide style, lock star. We can set in that going altitude now of 7,000. Flap 2, 160 knots should be good for here. Low water brake still engaged. You'd run another set of checks, really, your landing checklist or whatever you're using. And here we go, back on final. So really all we had to do in the box was reactivate the approach phase and sequence it. It's quite clever. Yeah, really good. Although, as I said, seemed to be a slight issue with the one with the Toliss today. It's normally a little bit easier. So our radio altimeter has come alive. What I should have done is just shown you guys we're going to land on 03, so we'll just take a high speed. Probably going to have to be this one here, Hotel November, turn right, head south, and then wait for instructions. Expecting to park somewhere over here.
17604, sorry sir, we don't have enough time for taxi, so we have to disconnect. Thank you for your RTC. Bye.
Oh, someone's run out of time. There's 2,000 feet. Let's go. Get down. And lights on. That's a bit zoomed in, wasn't it? Okay, let's manage the speeds. Nobody behind us. Flaps to 3.
Manta 1, clear to land runway 03, wind 290 degrees, 7 knots, variable between 250 and 330 degrees.
Clear to land 03, Manta 1, thank you. 290 at 7, so light wind from the left, which we can see up here. And we'll go to flap 4. And make sure the cabin's secured. And here we go. Now, it would be embarrassing if I mess it up now, so hopefully not. And I'm going to put in a little marker just to remind me we've been cleared to land. 290 at 7. So, what I will do, still above that, so it's slightly lighter wind and it's from the left now, so just going to put it in here. PM would do this, just to make sure ground speed mini is roughly correct. Just giving us a bit of extra speed. Now we're clear to land. Excellent, and here we go. Back on final. Lovely sunset over the town this evening. We will do a replay afterwards to enjoy the livery in all its glory. Lots of terrain around here. So that is stable once again. We are definitely visual with the runway. Let's go autopilot off. And let's have that there just for you guys to see. I've not touched the side stick at all yet. Still not touched it. Still not touched it. Creeps a little bit high, but yeah, the Airbus is just so stable. Right, let's see how well I can do I should make some excuses, but it's a bit late really. Right, final approach.
Atlantic 319, leave Papa Tango 405 on heading 210. 405 210, Atlantic 319.
Must remember flaps 1 once we get off the runway. Yeah, the glide slope isn't, I mean, it's pretty sensitive here, but it's a little less sensitive in real life, I'm convinced. There we go. There we go, get the reverses out, lower the nose gently. Nose wheels down. And rolling out. I'm going to get on the brakes because I want to come off at this high speed here. Through 70 knots, reverses at idle. 40 knots, this is a high speed, so yeah, we can take this now. 30 knots taxi speed, forward idle. We want the engines at forward idle before we vacate the runway because there's more dirt around here. Come on engines, forward idle, there we go. That's something that would be nice. That's why I've said before that new Thrustmaster side stick and thrust levers.
Welcome to Lisbon via Uniform Alpha stand 125.
Thank you, Uniform Alpha stand 125, Manta 1. Thank you. Oh, let's get out of the way. Our colleague. Well, we've had success with the Manta call sign, so that's good. I wasn't sure if that would be acceptable to that sim. So let's get ourselves over the line, and then we'll work out where we're actually meant to go. That plane behind us must be quite a way behind us, that Speedbird, so giving us a bit of space. Right, how do we do? Oh, people seem pretty happy. As I said before, I've had a few shockers with the landing rates in the previous videos. So how do we do today? Lizzo 5, thank you, had a guess of 300. Oh, sounds like it went well. -16, excellent. Good for once. As I said, I'm not entirely convinced about the exact accuracy of that system, but it's a bit of fun. It's also, obviously, we know it's not the main focus of a landing, but it is fun when we guess. Yeah, I suppose there is alpaca, isn't there, SP? Yeah. Oh, someone is now crossing. Right, let me focus up. I should get on top of this. So, uniform. We're cleared by uniform and alpha. In fact, let's sort this out. So, strobe lights off, landing lights off. And before I forget, flaps will go to 1. They can disarm. That can go there. Get that weather radar off. There we go. Okay, come to stop. Let's actually choose exactly where we want to be, because that's no good if I'm just guessing. Parking stands. Now, this obviously should have been briefed earlier. He said brakes hot. Yep. Uniform. Alpha stand 125. Interesting. I'm expecting Romeo. Have I written it down wrong? I'll just check with him before I embarrass myself. I know for now I want to... let's check. Apologies for Manta 1. Can we confirm our taxi routing, please?
Manta 1, you can continue straight on uniform left on Alpha stand 125.
Thank you. Uniform left on Alpha stand 125, Manta 1. Yep, no shame in asking if you're not sure. Oh, there we go. I think Carter's right then. It does look like a Toliss issue. But Victor, yes, lol the livery, absolutely. I hope it gave you a bit of a chuckle. Just a bit of fun that we thought we'd have. And it fitted in with the theme of the channel. So he wants us to go left. Stand 125, I can see, is down on this main terminal, down on the bottom side. Right, they can go off. We don't need those. If the brakes are going to go over sort of 600, we would definitely put the fans on. Otherwise, we'll try and delay it a bit. But they are really hot, so I'll give them a couple more seconds, then I'm going to cool them down. Let's get the APU starting up. And there's that Speedbird on final.
via Mike 5 holding point 03.
And expecting to be on the left. This is where X-Plane, the default airports in X-Plane are really impressive. They're such a difference for me compared to what I was used to in FSX. Okay, APU starting out. And let's get those brake fans on. So what we'll do, guys, is we're going to park up and then we'll have a quick little replay of the landing. And that'll be us for today. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the flight. So where we go, 146. So we are up here somewhere. So we'll just carry on down. See, this is great. The X-Plane has these numbers written down. I think someone asked about the ground handling, and it's taken me ages to get used to it. I find it really sensitive, but I don't fiddle with the I've got no axis curves as per the Toliss instructions. So I've got no curves or reduced sensitivity and no assistance as such, because then hopefully it feels like the fly-by-wire. But yeah, on the ground, very sensitive. Because on the ground, for these sorts of taxiing, I could just use the rudder pedals, and it's much easier than trying to use the tiller where you could oversteer. Oh, I think we're pretty much here. Stand 125. And there it is. 125, even written there. Just fantastic. Right, lights can go off, so we don't blind any ground crew. Fans are already on, so we don't have to worry about that. So the APU is available, and the hydraulic accumulator has pressure. So, all looking good. Right. Oh, that's too much. And this is the other problem with the ground handling, is not being able to adjust the brakes as you want. Simply because in the real airplane, of course, you can squeeze on them at different amounts. Oh, there you go. Carter says most of the default airports are made by the users of X-Plane. There you go. It shows they are really good. It's been really impressive for me. Rounds we go. So leaving those flaps at 1. Maybe in the next video I'll show you how you can retract them, because fielding with the flaps out is not a great plan. It can be done, but it's not the ideal situation. Right, let's slow it down. Get ourselves. I know I'm cheating here to use it for the centre line, but it does mainly use it for that stop line. Get ourselves roughly in the right place. Let's go for the next one. There we go. So, oh, excuse me. Parking brake is definitely set. The APU is definitely available. So let's shut down those engines. Passenger signs off. Let the fans spin down once we get a reasonable RPM. There we go, below 10. Beacon off. And fuel pumps can go off. Transponder can go to standby. And here we are. Great, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this inaugural flight of our Manta 1 liveried Airbus. I hope you've enjoyed it. So apologies if the livery's been too bright or given you any sort of headache over the time we've been flying. So thanks for coming along. Michael, window seat, and all the usuals. Richard B, Dougal, thanks for coming. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Martin as well, thank you. I'm glad you like the livery. Like I say, it will become available. So let's disconnect from that's in. Yeah, so it will become available in the near future onto the Discord. Please, anybody, join the Discord and you'll find out about upcoming streams and little plugins and so on that other people talk about. So, yes, excellent. Thank you, guys. Right, let's jump into the replay. Let's see if I can get this right for you guys. 3 hours, yeah. I love this scenery of Lisbon. That is I'm really impressed. Now, the question here is going to be, is this the first one or the second one? Let's start off with a inaugural 320 Simpilot wing view. Will, again, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Hope you do come back for another one. Thanks for coming along this one. Michael B as well, thank you. Mr. Espresso, I'm glad the go around was useful. Yeah, good to see it. Thank you for joining us. So let's yeah, we'll have one from inside, then we'll do the outside, and then I'll let you guys carry on with your evenings. There we are, and you see what I mean about the landing rate monitor. It seems to change its mind a little bit. And let's go back once more. Last one. I hope this doesn't look too indulgent. It's I know some people, well, I know I enjoy it when I see other people do it. So it's always something, if people like it, it's worth doing. So we'll scoot along, get ourselves a little flyby. Zoom in. There we go. And let's start the music, I suppose. Some nice, relaxing outro music. Hopefully that works. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for coming along. Thank you for all your support and for the subscriptions and for joining in on the Discord. I hope to see you again in another live stream soon. Like I say, this livery will become available fairly soon on the Discord. And otherwise, please do keep safe, enjoy yourselves, and see you again in another video soon. Thank you very much.